Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to just introduce myself briefly. I'm a mechanical engineer by background. I spent over 30 years in the advanced manufacturing industry in plastics, production systems, machining, all the advanced production processes, and I'm now responsible for an industry program led by industry. Hence my comments as industry decided in 2005 it will engineer the future of its technical skills supply chain, and we started a program in 2005 that designs, develops and pilots the type of solutions that industry is looking for, both in the artisan, technician and engineering space for advanced manufacturing. So we are not in the business of traditional skills. We are looking at the futuristic skills, that the rapid changes that's happening in the world in technology, the impact it's going to have on manufacturing and specifically production systems. Because we are no longer nowadays talking about things like a machine producing something. We're talking about a production system that might involve an injection molding machine with a complex piece of tooling that's highly automated with sensors and data and so on coupled to it. And there's a whole host of other systems interfacing with this piece of technology right to the ERP system of the company as well as its customers. So it's become a highly different environment to the days, for instance, myself was a young engineer and exposed to industry. Those days have long gone, and the pace of change is the thing that has already caught South Africa by surprise again, because we're still contemplating what 4IR is, where 4IR is 10 years old and it's running and the bus is going fairly fast. It's now a Formula One racing car, no longer a bus. So we need to maybe have a better understanding of what this means, and I hope that I can give you a short perspective of what the manufacturing industry thinks South Africa's response should be. But we don't think, we are already doing this. We're doing this on a fairly national scale in 4 provinces, and we have substantial young people under development using the type of methodologies that I'm going to highlight to you. Firstly, I think we need to understand what the doomsday sayers are saying, and this is research papers recently published by Accenture, but there's similar papers from Deloitte and elsewhere. International World Economic Forum is saying similar things. If you look at this, it creates a very gloom picture that job losses, job losses, job losses. But I want us to approach this, and industry and manufacturing has decided to approach this differently. This might be fact, but we're not going to buy into this. We're going to say, okay, what do we need to do to be a country that's in manufacturing, that has a growing GDP in manufacturing again versus our current shrinking one? How did China do the magic manufacturing thing? How did the US become a growing economy again by bringing manufacturing back? So we need to learn some lessons from what the Germans, the Chinese, the Koreans, the US are doing, and it's all based on manufacturing. Hence, South Africa has a manufacturing focus from a government policy perspective. You'll hear everyone saying manufacturing is critical and it's going to create the jobs. But this is telling you it's not. So if we unpack that a little bit, this is the picture that I believe we need to focus on. The future is about cooperation between humans and technology. So we're talking about hybrid systems where I believe, and we in manufacturing believes, that you can never decouple the human especially because of its innovation capacity. Technology can innovate, AI can do some things, but there are some things like creativity and consciousness specifically. You know, I still need someone to give me a good demonstration of how conscious a production system is, apart from the programming and the repeatability. Yes, it can self-learn through modern AI, but it's mostly what it does, it's self-learning. It hasn't got that human capability, and that means that our future innovation is partnering humans with technology. So that means we have to re-understand the role of the human. So if we keep on doing what we're doing, the job losses will be there, because the type of people we are producing in our schools, universities and colleges will be jobless by 2025, because we can use very little of their capabilities, because they don't have the competencies this new world needs. So what we have done in the manufacturing sector is we have, through the major organizations, which is the Production Technology Association of South Africa, the Manufacturing Circle, the SAIMC that Johan just represented, the Capital Equipment Export Council, as well as several of the smaller associations, the welding and copper and a lot of the smaller guys, have in principle agreed to put its weight behind this national program and to speak as one voice as industry. And this program, as it's an industry-led program, it is partnering with national government through the DTI to make sure that our policy frameworks match what we are doing. And it's the DTI's responsibility to get education, science and technology aligned. But this is industry's methodology, white paper if you want, of where we're going and how we're going to meet 4IR. But we are dragging our government partners along so that they can learn and that we can build the capacity to make sure we have a manufacturing sector in the future. So there's a formal partnership. It's called the Nsimbi Future Production Technologies Initiative. Previously it was under the pilot phase called the National Tooling Initiative. We piloted this methodology in a small critical sector of manufacturing, which is the tooling, and tooling systems nowadays is basically the automation you see in factories that produces cars or plastic bottles or so on. It's a production system. It involves tooling, it involves machining, it involves other technologies like injection molding, blow molding, metal pressing, forging, all those things. But in essence, it's what makes the stuff that comes out of factories. It's a production system. And globally, we are seeing this trend, and South Africa is a partner or a member of the International Production Association called ISTMA. We're currently the president chairholder for the past 2 years and the next year. And we are leading innovators through this program in the international community, where we have been mandated to do an international pilot of a futuristic skill solution based on technology. In other words, how are we going to revolutionize skills development or competency development? What does that look like if we put 4IR into the technical education environment? So I'm going to share that with you to show you where we're going to take this. So we basically in this program have 3 main focus areas, and it's all about systemic solutions. It's not about the curriculum. We say curriculum is a very low level component of a solution, but the systemic solution that's sustainable for producing future skills, it does also involve enterprises. If we can't develop our enterprises to start changing from a technology process point of view, to start incorporating newly skilled people and to start building innovation capacity in our businesses. And therefore we have to relook at the funding model, because our current CETA-based funding model, as far as we in advanced manufacturing, it's a complete failure. It no longer suits our needs, it's not flexible, and it cannot do what we want it to do. So basically all our industry money is going to waste, and industry has pinned its flag on a mast saying in a white paper to government that they want the CETA system abolished, and we want our money directed to solutions that we really want, and that's driven by industry and not by 50-year-old systems that no longer meet our requirements. But that's going to take some time. So that's the solution approach, where we look at competitiveness development, skill systems, new businesses, talent deployment, and transformation in a systemic cycle of development. So this is how we're going to do this in the future. So this is going to revolutionize education a little bit from, if you understand what I'm going to show you. So what you see there on the top end is, we call it a nodal network, but the first critical component is some form of ICT platform. There are many around that you can just buy, which is the means by which we want to enable or hook onto what is called big data in our future smart factories. So that means it's purely a platform that where the data resides, where every sensor, every iPhone, every thing that happens on a machine streams data to an environment where it's manageable, plug and play type stuff. So that you can buy Amazon or Microsoft or ThingWorks or any one of these platforms that enables just devices to communicate. Because that's going to be the element that resides in future in most factories, is a dark factory. I'll explain in the next slides. But now we look at what we are going to do in education, is the layer below, what you see on the screen. It's a 1 to 9 node layered network, like the rings of an onion. That is a blockchain in controlled environment where the various onion layers inside this is controlled via an internal or a national country-based nodal network that's on blockchain, where we start with your industry standards and quality requirements. So we take industry standards like Johan illustrated, ISA. They have already said this is the standards that they are going to develop, and around that will develop competency standards, and around that will develop curriculum and training programs and all the rest of it. So we're going to do the same. We're going to take the standards of big industry globally, and we're going to say we're not smarter than them, we're not going to develop new standards, that is the standard. So if the mechatronics standard is Siemens Festo and whoever's collaborated, we use Siemens Festo standards, not take years to develop a South African version of that. Automation is automation. We're going to do what the rest of the world does. Around that, we don't actually, we're going to develop frameworks. In other words, we're going to look at the competencies required by industry and develop frameworks to say there are 500 modules that's in this automation robotics space of competencies that the various mechanical, electrical, chemical, and the process and the factory automation is going to need. We're going to provide it, but you can custom build your own training program out of internationally standardized modules. Those modules are provided by the global tech companies. So we're never going to write a curriculum content again. We're going to package curriculum content into frameworks that meet the standards outcomes that industry needs. So we're going to invite Siemens, for instance, and Festo and Allen Bradley and Honeywell and whoever to say layer 4 or 3, just get my glasses so I can see what I'm talking about. Oh, there we are. So the modular knowledge and competency components are supplied and put on the network for free. In other words, we're never going to pay for training material again in manufacturing. We're going to say, the big tech giants, whoever, you all free to put your information on there. But a student is not going to train on Siemens material if you don't put it there. And if you don't put Siemens or your latest equipment in our learning labs or learning factories, sorry, they ain't going to train on Siemens. So we're trying to get here to a networked system where education to the person selected through a portal because of his talent profile and other processes he will go through on apps and so on, will be selected into a training program and he trains for free. Therefore, tech giants can't charge money to the student for their training material. So if your training material is not on there, we don't train on your material. So they're going to put it there, believe me. They've already indicated they will. We're working with 20 of the biggest countries in the world on this, USA, Japan, Germany, China, and ourselves, but we're doing the pilot in South Africa of this system. So we're very far advanced in being able to do this. Our blockchain network is underway. We're going to run the first pilot hardware and software tech phase in Diepsloot in the next 2 weeks, where we're going to show how you do an intranet in a disadvantaged community, where you give them free Wi-Fi learning material access through apps on their technologies, and everything that comes to the border might be paid for, but as soon as it goes into the community, it's for free. And on that we can in the end put anything from apps or health information. Here we're going to do technical training and access to training materials and our advanced curriculum components. But once we've demonstrated this, you can just think the community is enabled to do anything. And we can do similar things where we have apps already developed for money around training. You will log in as a student. Once you've done some processes, it will allow you to get curriculum material. It will then allow you to book time in a practical lab on the most advanced equipment. We've put up 7 labs across the country that's got the most advanced equipment in it that industry has mobilized in there. So we train you on the best world-class equipment in, for instance, tooling or machining or automation, robotics as we go there. To do your on-the-job training, you select a company. There's processes we developed already, we've been doing for the past 9 years to show how 550 companies nationally participate in training over 3,000 students with not a single student not doing 40% a year on the factory floor on a guided program. So we do theory, practical and advanced labs, and on-the-job training in a single year for any student, whether you're an engineer, a technician, or an artisan, or a machine operator, or a foundation student. So the system works. It's 9 years track record. We've trained nearly 3,000 people, 30% female, in highly advanced manufacturing skills. It's 100% reflective of the country's demographics. So again, industry has come with a solution that works, but it's unfortunately not yet the mainstream system. So we need to work with the mainstream systems now to define a point of convergence where our colleges, universities start doing this so that we meet each other 10 years or 5 years in the future. But this is where we're going. So if you're not on this bus, you ain't the supplier to us in future, that I can guarantee you. So, but this is not threatening talk from industry. This is what industry is seeing is direly necessary to solve our youth unemployment problem, to solve our declining manufacturing industry. We are positioned, the world loves what we are doing here, they're supporting us, so we must make sure we do this first. We are the innovators of this in South Africa, but the rest of the world's going to outrun us like they have always done. This gives us a chance to leapfrog. So take education into the hands of the individual, support them with good, it's not to say that teachers won't exist anymore. Teachers will be background, people will struggle with some of the materials. They book time, teacher converges on a Saturday or a Friday morning for a class of 10 people struggling. They're still teaching in the traditional way and facilitating, but we're more looking for mentors, facilitators, and highly skilled technical artisans, engineers to be in the labs and the practical training side, because our focus is on the practical competency, not on the theory. Theory is a necessary evil, but we believe young kids, youth have demonstrated through the complex games they play that if we provide the tech, they can teach themselves. They don't really need a teacher. They need teachers for the stuff they're struggling with. So we are engineering the environment to look like that, where you will have a classroom you can go to solve your problems. There will be a teacher, but you will use apps to make sure that you schedule those teachers to your demand, and you will be supplied with additional help through technology to solve your problem where you are stuck, because the AI in the background will determine, we are tracking what you are struggling with, both on your practical, your on-the-job training and your theory, so we can help you with more channels of availability of additional tools to solve your problem, and in the worst case you'll have a teacher to go. We're also linking this to all our companies so that you can look at on-the-job training opportunities as a student. You schedule it, you in control. Every piece of data engineered around the student is captured by the IoT platform. So we have big data on a student's progress, and it's available to all our companies, and the companies can scrutinize this, and 86% of all our students over the past 9 years are permanently employed before they finish, because the student does not belong to the company. The student belongs to a pipeline that's a national pipeline owned by all our companies collectively, so you can only belong to a company contractually on the day you qualify. So that solves the problem of people poaching each other. So we run a national pipeline saying we're going to need 5,000 of these type of people, coordinated by industry, and we just start producing them. We don't wait for labor contracts and so on, because companies are not interested to employ you until you can demonstrate your competency. So the old system of you can only get CETA funding if you are employed, that's why it's not happening, because we're not prepared to work like that anymore. We will employ you when you demonstrate competency. So unfortunately, the current national system doesn't work like that, and therefore we cannot as industry continue to work with a system that's broken and produces people we cannot employ. All our new businesses, we do business incubation as part of this. So when we see young people that have got talent, that's showing entrepreneurial skills, the network will lead you down a pathway where we will, through supplier development programs with our companies, develop you into a business. We've got a live one running at Diepsloot in the River Sands Incubation Hub. So all of this I'm talking about, you can go see. There's large training facilities. We have a 3,500 square meter advanced lab facility in Hermanstad, one in Cape Town, one in PE, one in Durban. And those are just demonstrators of what a training workshop at any college and university should look like. And do yourself a favor and go and look. I challenge any university or any college, bar Stellenbosch, that we are partnering with. They have one of a similar quality and aligned to what industry wants it to look like. Obviously some of the other 3D printing facilities you have at various universities is world class, so it's similar. But most other colleges and universities have outdated equipment, aged labs, places not conducive to training. You know, I walk into colleges, the windows are broken, the floors are dirty, the machines, half of them don't work, there's no maintenance and so on. We have epoxied floors, modern factories laid out flow-wise like a modern factory, like the best in the world. And you know, it's a pleasant place to come and learn. The people have proper safety gear, overalls, identification. They are trained in personal skills to communicate and to be proud on, you know, we have a social worker per 25 students to manage away the crises that most young South Africans have because of where they come from, barriers to learning because of where, you know, this is part of the package that industry knew it had to solve in order to solve the problem. We've demonstrated how to do this. I'm going to short circuit some of that I don't steal too much of the next speaker's time. But this is essentially what we believe the future smart factories will be: cloud, computers, sensors, robots, machines, dark factories. There won't be people inside there. But around the periphery, there will be people dealing with data, with automation, with outputs, with installing this equipment, with maintaining it, and so on. And there will be things like apps and software. Who develops those? So all the peripherals are the human and the future opportunities that we need to gear towards. So we can't look at occupations the way we used to. We have to look at baskets of competencies that can serve those areas that will reside around the future modern smart factories. So the very important one that we believe is critical is the human innovation capacity. So if we look at all those aspects, from product development, R&D, process development, the financial engineering around how do you set up a factory very fast, go through the motion. If we want to attract German or other factories to come set up in South Africa, can we put this package together more skillfully than other countries to provide an investment destination? We have the engineers that can design the factories. We have the speed to put up the factories, to fund them, to bring the skilled supply chain, so that you can tell a Bosch, come set up your factory here, we can have it operational in 6 months. We have the skilled supply chain. This is where we need to get smart, not in researching or trying to compete with the world on a specific manufacturing technology. We have to become appliers of technology smarter than others. We are not a leading researcher in the fields of front-end materials and production processes. So let's rather become an applier of modern technologies that come from Germany, China, and elsewhere, but our package is smarter than anyone else's. And our skill supply chain is more efficient than that of the other countries. Because what do we have? We have young people. That countries like the USA and Germany and so on have negative population growth. We have the youth pool. They are talented, but they have some barriers to entry, and they are stuck in old systems that does not work like this. Same on the support side, you know, around security, data, all the things listed there, maintenance, repair. Those are the opportunities of the future. So let's make sure we produce those people and not the people that a packer in a plant is redundant. There is no more a future in packing, if it's agricultural product or whatever product, into a box. That AI and a robot will take those jobs away, unfortunately. So we have to look at the more skilled competency requirements of these factories versus low-end skill in the financial world, in manufacturing, in medical, everywhere is going to be taken over by applications and devices that can provide the data, not people. So that's our national footprint. We're in 4 provinces. We have, out of need, created our own trade test centers for artisans in order to be able to assess them properly, because the national system cannot provide on these advanced skills. We have more than 12 part qualifications and roughly about 30 modules of competencies already developed in the tooling and machining space. We are busy with industrial maintenance, automation and robotics, including mechatronics. But other than what has been done up to now, people have just, for instance, some of the new mechatronics curriculum tabled is the CETAs rehashing and repackaging old stuff into the new QCTO framework. That's not a modern curriculum. That's not industry that has come to you and said, this is what we want. They have done a copy and paste and a the job wasn't done to the satisfaction of industry, so that I don't step on too many toes. But you know, this is all we're asking is we have the resources in industry to do this. We have the knowledge, we can put this together, but we need to change the process. We will come with that, and we're not interested in just accepting something that someone has forced into the system. So that's my story. I hope I've been able to illustrate that there is good things happening in South Africa. It is well noticed by the rest of the world, and therefore we are well supported. Unfortunately, we are just not well supported by our own community, except for the manufacturing community. But the mainstream skills and policy environment don't like us very much because we are disrupting the space, but disruption, like Uber, is the future of everyone around this table and everyone out there. Life is never going to be the same again because of the rapid deployment of technology that we will now see in the next 5 years. So thank you very much. Any questions, you're very welcome.